Welcome to After the Poll, the video series where I share all my thoughts and opinions on the rest of the comic books that I read for the current comic book week. I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you love daily comic book content and you think you might like me helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy, and you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for, guys? Hit that subscribe button. Yeah, so if you love new number ones, right? And you want to check out a series I do every single Thursday, you want to check out Worthy Ones, check that out. I'll leave it at the end of this video. So with that being said, guys, we got a lot of books to talk about this week, so let's jump into it. Okay, so here we go. We got about 16 or 17 books to talk about, and we're going to kick off things with the speed round. And you know what? I feel like when it comes to this week's episode of After the Poll, all the great books were talked about already, because there wasn't anything that really blew me away until we get to probably later on in the video. So there are a lot of books that are on the speed round this week. So the first book we're going to be talking about is DC Horror Presents, right? This is issue 1. So when it comes to this comic book, I thought that this one was fine for what it is, right? It's just to kind of celebrate or get you in the mood of Halloween, as it's got 2 stories to tell in here. I didn't think they were that great. I thought they could have been stronger. I would have loved to seen what was on the cover here with Superman being crushed by like this barbed wire or whatever it is, but you kind of don't see any of that. You see some secondary characters in here. The art was okay. It was a little bit, basic, and it really was a quick read. So if you still on the fence about thinking about buying this, I think you should pass on this one. All right, the next book we're going to be talking about is The Avengers. This is issue 19. Now, this book has been up and down for me, and I felt that this issue was really much a filler issue. I guess this is the first book that we're really discussing things with Dr. Doom being Sorcerer Supreme, and he makes his visit to the Avengers, and he just sits there and says the Avengers can be this and the Avengers can be that, but nothing really ever happens in this comic book to be like, oh man, you know what, I can't wait to buy Dr. Doom comic books with him being Sorcerer Supreme and future issues of Avengers. There wasn't anything here that was a real good hook, but however, I do tend to read Jed McKay stuff, and I know Avengers are going to be crossing over with X-Men, so yeah, I'm probably going to wind up continuing it, but wasn't the strongest issue of Avengers. The next one we're going to talk about, which was a decent book. This one was Frankenstein issue 3. I think it's been a pretty, solid series, but in this issue was a little bit on the slower side of things, as you get to see Henry Frankenstein's fiance or wife, and how much in love that she was with Frankenstein himself, and how he's grown distance because of his father's death and all these other different things, and how they're trying to save the child that's in this comic book and whatnot. So it was a very heartfelt issue, and I think that's the purpose of this issue. So if you've been reading Frankenstein, I think you should continue to read it. I thought it was a pretty decent issue. The next book we're going to talk about here is Alien Romulus. This is issue 1. This book was a decent prequel, I guess, to the movie. I haven't seen the movie, so I have nothing to compare it with when it comes to, read this first and then go see the movie next. But it's a very traditional comic when you think of aliens, right? Because you get your crew, they come across an alien, and then the alien eats them up or destroys them. That's basically what happens in this comic book. It had some nice suspense, some good tension in the comic book. Artwork was decent, but nothing to be like, I gotta run out and buy this, right? The next book, and I know I was gonna say this, but I could not wrap my head around doing another singing event when it came to talking about Dazzler. The lyrics are so bad in this comic, it was just horrible. I actually tried it to myself, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing it this time. So Dazzler issue 2 is another one of those books where it was we get to see her finish her performance from the last issue. They're trying to figure out, okay, who's sabotaging our tour, and we find out that it's a low-level telepath that has a much higher power behind it. We're not sure who that is, and then we also get to see Dazzler kind of do the talk show circuit where she's being, talked about the mutants, the humans. It's just an average comic book. There's nothing here that's going to be like, wow, I got to read Dazzler, right? You know, there's these comics that you'll see them later. There's comics that really stand out, and then there's just been lately just your run-of-the-mill stuff. All right. Unfortunately, this was probably one of my least favorite issues of Void Rivals. This starts a new story arc. It took a little bit of a break. This is Void Rivals. This is issue 13. We get the introduction of Pythona in this book. And if you're not familiar with her, she is Cobra Law from G.I. Joe. So that's her connection to Energon. But you only get to see her in like a couple of pages in this particular issue. And then we wind up getting to see our two main characters, like Derex and I think Solilla are the names, and they wind up separating, and then you wind up seeing Derex go back to his own place, and how unity is not in the cards because it can mean the ultimate destruction. There's obviously a much greater thing at hand, but in this issue, if you're looking for action, if you're looking for her, Pythona, to make a difference in this comic, it really doesn't deliver. This doesn't change my thought process behind Void Rivals. It's just a slower book, this particular issue. The Tin Can Society. This is issue 2 of 9. I really liked the first issue of this, and for some reason in the second issue, I couldn't really get into this one. For some reason, I didn't find the relationship between the two characters in here that great. I didn't find the actual comic book all that great. I could be in a minority here. Maybe it's just one of those trap books, right, where you read a lot of books and then it gets lost in the shuffle and you're like, this one was all right, but nothing special. But I tend to read my independent comics last, as I tend to enjoy those ones the most, and this was one that I was really looking forward to, and it just, I don't know, it made me not really want to buy the next issue. So it's really much on the fence when it comes to Tin Can Society. The Incredible Hulk. This is issue 18. So here we wind up seeing Banner kind of say, hey, Hulk, you know, you can sacrifice yourself to save Charlie. And we wind up getting to see Charlie wind up living. And she's in this like cabin or house in Vegas or whatever it is. But she's alive once again, right? And she tries to escape. And you wind up getting this little flesh eater person that tries to save her, to try to help her escape. And Hulk is all bonded by the eldest, and he's trying to escape, and that can't happen, and she really wants his flesh. Like, that's what she wants from him. Okay, issue. I don't know if it really progresses anything all that much, but at least we finally get Charlie back, and then maybe we can move forward with the story and to see like really where we're going with it. All right, the next book we're going to talk about had a solid ending, and this one is Zatanna, Bring Down the House. This is book 5. This overall series has been really good, and I definitely would recommend it if you guys have not checked it out yet. So when it comes out in trade, I think it's an interesting story of the character, kind of seeing how she did not use magic when she was in the beginning of the series, and she would call it tricks, and then she winds up confronting like her father at the end of the issue or at the series, and now she's able to use magic, and she's going to big shows in Vegas, and she's not afraid to use her powers. And I think, you know, this book really showcases her overcoming her fears and don't let her past holding her back. The cast of characters are interesting in this comic, and the artwork was really psychedelic, and that's what I loved about it the most. So definitely would recommend Zatanna, Bring Down the House. So now let's go into a little bit more detail on some of these other books. Spider-Boy. This is issue 12. It's a 32-page comic for $5, written by Dan Slott. Art is done by Paco Mandino, which I love his artwork, man. I think he really brings the characters to life. I think the colorist does a great job on this comic, and this is a perfect book for younger audience, but it really is fun for all ages, right? And learning about Spider-Boy in the past year has been a really fun book to read. I really do enjoy it. You know, if you're not familiar with Spider-Boy, he was trained by Daredevil, which I think is really awesome here. And there's this little story about Spider-Boy acquiring this like golden fang thing, and Bullseye wants to get it back, and he sees that Daredevil had a little sidekick. So what does Bullseye do? Well, he trains one of his own, and then we're wind up being introduced to Spider-Girl for the first time. Why do we need a Spider-Girl in another Spider-Girl character? I'm not sure, but she was kind of cool and she kind of kicked his ass and he wasn't expecting it. And I really want to see who this actual character is, right? So listen, I'm going to recommend this book because again, it's all ages comic book. So if you're want maybe your son or daughter to read this book and you want to introduce them to comics, this is the one to do it, right? So good stuff. I enjoy reading it, and at the end of the day, I'm going to give this one a solid B. So what do you guys think of Spider-Boy? You like it or you hate it? So like I said earlier, you guys are probably wondering, where are all the DC stuff? Well, on Worthy Ones this past week, I talked about all the DC stuff because is it worthy of jumping in the all-in titles? So that's why you see very little DC in this video. But the next book we're talking about is Venom War Carnage. This is issue 3. This one is a $4 comic book, 28 pages. Listen, when it comes to Carnage here, this one's written by Torrin Grumbeck. I think the Carnage book is better than the Venom book, in my personal opinion here. And I think all of us know at this point, we got the news from San Diego Comic-Con that Cletus Cassidy is no longer going to be Carnage, and Eddie Brock is taking over that symbiote. So we wind up seeing Carnage take on Meredith, who is a future Eddie Brock, and they have their different points of views on different things, right? And they have this long, lengthy battle and conversations and this and that. And really, by the time we wind up getting to the end of it, it just looks like that Cletus Cassidy just walks away from the Carnage symbiote. And Carnage says, "You need me." And he's like, "No, I think you need me more than I need you." And he just like walks away, and the Carnage symbiote's like, "What do I do now?" So I guess basically what happens after Venom War is that's when Eddie takes over the Carnage symbiote. So I guess, time will tell exactly what happens. But again, the Carnage book is actually halfway decent written book, better than Venom in my opinion. So same like Spider-Boy, I'm going to give this book a solid B. It was an entertaining read with entertaining artwork. It's been gruesome, it's been gory, and I've had fun with it. X-Men, this is issue 6, legacy numbering 306, 28 pages, $5. The writer here is Jed McKay. The art is done by Nitho Diaz. I think overall, Diaz's artwork is pretty good. I think he drew a lot of characters really great, but for some reason, when it came to Magic, like her facial expressions were off for me, especially in this page here. Like she just made her body just like really caved in, and then look at her facial expression. She almost looks like she's stoned here. I'm like, why is she so weird looking, right? And then Temper, she looks kind of fine. Like it's good overall, but just Magic was the one that was messed up. So in this comic, we wind up getting to see more of these like new mutants that are in their base, obviously trying to figure out certain things about them. We wind up seeing Temper and Magic get this little like signal or distress call from this young girl who's figuring out that, you know what, she is a mutant. And they're like, well, how do you know this? Because she winds up signaling something very large and very big that was going after her, I guess previously, and you're kind of left with this cliffhanger going, oh damn, that's pretty insane. You get some cool character moments in here with, your cast of characters, especially with Magneto and the situation that he's going through and what Beast is trying to figure out what he needs to do with Magneto. So there's some fun elements in here. I wouldn't say that like this X-Men title is my favorite. It's not. I mean, Uncanny seems to be my favorite, and I'm still waiting for something like, I don't know, a little bit more bigger to happen here. I guess maybe we're getting there, but we're 6 issues in so far, and I feel like the book is a little bit repetitive. It's not like a horrible read or whatever, but I'm just waiting for something to really kind of move things along here, right? So at the end of the day, I'm going to give this one a C+. Where do you guys stand on the X-Men title right now? X Factor. This is issue 3, legacy numbering 295. 32 pages, $4, written by Mark Russell, Bob Quinn. The artwork is pretty solid in this comic book. I like the facial expressions. I like the coloring in here as well, especially the opening of this comic book where they're like at a con. And obviously, if you've ever been to a comic convention before, you know what to, you see all the little like Easter eggs in there of what all the characters are going through. The character spotlight on this comic is, was it Grandma Smite, I think is her name, or Granny Smite, and we learn about her immortality, and her existence is to figure out a way to die, but no matter what, this woman cannot die. And the main thing of this comic book is they got to go out on this mission from one of the people that they work for. I think it's Click Clock, right? And he's got this lunar base that's gone haywire, and they actually have to destroy it, but not get themselves destroyed in the process. And in the comic, Grandma is the one that's kind of the savior of the day. The big thing about this comic book is, based off of what happened in the previous issue with Polaris, they're still trying to find Polaris, and they say, oh yeah, family's important, but that's all a bunch of bullshit, as they gotta sign a bunch of NDAs and stuff like that. So this book is alright. I wouldn't say like this book is the best, and we don't still really know what direction this comic is. It's pretty much right now like a one and done every issue story with a little bit of a major story arc, I guess, going on with the whole Polaris and Havoc on what side is he on, right? But who knows? For what this issue was, I thought it was fine. C+ from me. What do you guys think? What X books are you still reading at this point? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is issue 3, 28 pages for the price of $5. Written by Jason Aaron, Cliff Chang does the artwork. Cliff Chang's artwork is actually pretty good. I like it. He was the artist that did Paper Girls, I think, if I stand corrected, right? Just let me know if I was wrong. But his artwork is not overly complex. It's very simplistic. Really, this issue focuses on Leonardo. So by this time, you should know what's going on, right? Free Comic Book Day, we kind of focused on Donatello. Then we focused on Raph. Then we focused on Mikey. Now we're focused on Leonardo. And by the time we got to the end of it, we wound up seeing these three wind up reuniting with each other, which was kind of cool, but maybe not in the best way, right? This whole thing leads up to Leonardo kind of meditating, finding peace with himself with these soft shell mud turtles, which is kind of funny because here in my neighborhood, they always go from like lake to lake and they get stuck on the fence, and I'm constantly saving these turtles and I'm putting them back in the lake all the time, but you got to grab them from behind because they will bite you. So I got to be very careful with them. But I would say out of all these issues, this was my least favorite, just because I was like, we're talking about turtles here, like regular turtles. Now, you could be biased because you have your favorite turtle. I know there's a lot of people out there that really like Leonardo, and no matter what story they're going to read, they're going to like, their favorite turtle story, right? So it's totally fine if you thought this one was the best. This artwork right here, I thought was really pretty badass right here and here. So, and then I told you what kind of happens at the end of the comic book. So cool stuff. Definitely looking forward to the next issue. I think if you want a good voice on Turtles, I think Jason Aaron gets the character so far. So we'll see what's in store for the future. At the end of the day, I'm giving this one a B+. Solid read, just not quite my favorite out of these 3 issues so far. Rook Exodus. This is issue 6, the conclusion to the first story arc. A 32-page comic for the price of $4. This one is written by Jeff Johns. Jason Fabok does the artwork. I've been saying all year, guys, this is one of the best comic books on the stands today. Everyone should be reading Rook Exodus. This should be number 1 on League of Comic Geeks pull list, because it's not, right? If you haven't checked it out, I'm sure the first trade will be out as soon as this last issue has been released, and you can get yourself caught up. But Jason Fabok's artwork is so awesome in here. All the characters are just totally brought to life, and you find yourself immersed into this world ever since issue 1, and you want to know more about these characters, these wardens that have these helmets that control these animals, and what this planet is and how they're going to escape from this planet. And in this issue, you wind up getting to see this confrontation between Rook, who is your main battle, and the main mysterious bad guy by the name of Ursa. It's an epic battle between these characters. It's so well done, and we wind up getting to see a mention or a first appearance of Bloodhound, who is a new character that can maybe possibly save this world. Now, what's the importance of him? You'll have to read it to find out. But check out this 2-page spread, man. It is so freaking good. This comic book is a top pick and an A+ for me. Again, one of the comic books of the year in my eyes. If you guys agree, let me know in the comments below. What did you think of this final issue of the first story arc? And does it suck that we have to wait until January for the next issue? The Moon is Following Us. This is issue 2. This is a 32-page comic for the price of $4. Written and drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson. The other artist in this comic is Riley Rosmo, who does the Dream State stuff in this comic book. Now, this book is very much like a first issue. You kind of find out what is going on with our main characters and how they got to the point where they're at when you read the first issue. Like, it all makes sense, right? Interesting hook from Daniel Warren Johnson, because he slows everything down at the end of the first. That's the hook. So it's like, what's the second going to be about? And it gets you here, and then it makes you really want to buy more, right? The artwork, like I said, most of the issue is done by Daniel Warren Johnson here. The artwork is great. If you know his artwork, you know what to expect. This book is full of emotion, right? If you're a father or a mother and something happens to your kid, it's like you want to die before them, right? And that's very much expressed in this comic book, because there is a condition that happens to their daughter Penny here, where she is in this constant dream state, and it's really much explained everything here on the thing that she's going through. So I felt like Daniel Warren Johnson really had to do some research when it comes to sleeping, right? And then you wind up getting visited by the mysterious character that kind of explains everything to them and takes them to the realm of where they need to go. And this is really Penny's dream world, her realm, right? And all the characters that are in this comic book represent toys that are in her life. And I thought that was just so creative and inventive by Daniel Warren Johnson to come out with a comic book. And they're fighting this war within her mind. So really great stuff. Absolutely amazing comic book. Great story. Another top pick for me. A+. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to next level comic books, right? You got books like Rook Exodus, books like The Moon is Following Us, Transformers, you know, you got those books that are top tier, Geiger, all that stuff. And then you got that DC stuff that came out this week that was pretty good, right? And then you got Marvel right now that's kind of average, right? So you kind of see the levels that we're going at right now. Hopefully Marvel can pick things up, but right now, The Moon is Following Us, Rook Exodus, best books this week. And there you have it, webheads. There are the rest of the books that I read this week, and I shared my thoughts and opinions. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments section below. And of course, guys, I'm going to leave you worthy ones right here for you to click on, and top 10 comic book covers of the week, where you can vote on your favorite comic book cover. It's a fun series. Please vote. The more votes, the better. So it just makes it that much more fun. That's all I can say about it. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Support the local comic shops. Keep buying, keep collecting, but always read your comics. I'll see you on the next one.